Hello guys and girls, it's TryHard Emity and I'm back at you with some Diablo 3 Reaper of Souls content. Today we'll be discussing the Demon Hunter. I'll be covering a spec I'm currently using that I'm absolutely wrecking Torments 1 and 2 with, and some gameplay of the actual spec I'll be showing you, along with just kind of what gear I'm using at the moment. I won't be going into detail about gearing and gearing your Demon Hunter. That will be for a separate guide, which will be out in a few weeks when I'm back from vacation. So let's get started with the spec, guys. Alright guys, so before we get started, if you look at the bottom of your screen, you will see a navigation bar. So if you're not interested in hearing what I'm saying about the actual build itself, and you want to just get straight to the gameplay footage, feel free to click the link below and it'll bring you straight there. So we'll get started straight into the build. Now, like I said in my last video, if you are interested in one of your builds being kind of highlighted on the channel, link it in the comment section below and I'll actually review it and possibly choose it for a video later on. And I will be doing more builds for the Demon Hunter. This is just the one I'm currently using and I'm really enjoying. So yeah, let's get started. Alright, so as you can see, the spec is revolving around Elemental Arrow as your main DPS output. Reason I choose this actual main ability is I just find it really fun and I find it really efficient at the moment. After the expansion hit, it just seems to be really good and they haven't necessarily changed it too much. So we'll get started with the primary skill anyways. Now I'm testing out Hungering Arrow. They just changed it so it's 155% weapon damage as a base. I think they buffed it by about 30% damage, give or take. I'm pretty sure that was the number though. This currently, I find this to be the best DPS primary skill you can be using. And I have tested them all out, quite a bit. Bolas are pretty good, but I do not like the style of Bola. I do not like waiting for the damage to come out. I like to do the damage instantly, kill the enemies, move on. And I also have been using Entangling Shot a lot. Reason being is I'm using a cold damage build, so I'm getting plus cold damage on my gear, and this is gaining directly from that damage. So it's a DPS gain if I use this, but Hungering Arrow still seems to take the spotlight with Spray of Teeth. So I'd recommend probably using that. Also, I was using Entangling Shots with, was it Justice is Served? Yeah. That's for increased hatred regeneration. So, you spam a few of these and then you can cast 4 or 5 elemental arrows. So that's probably what I'll be using for the majority of the time. But Hungering Arrow seems to do the trick for damage as well. Now, for my secondary ability, I'm using Elemental Arrow with Frost Arrow. Reason being is my passive ability, I'm using Call of the Weak, which gives you 20% straight damage versus slowed enemies, which I find absolutely incredible. So when you're using Elemental Arrow with Frost Arrow, they're always slowed, except for the initial hit, obviously. But I don't think the damage is calculated as the initial hit as them being slowed immediately. I think you have to cast one, then continuous shots to get the increased damage. Either way, I'm using that with Frost Arrow. It does absolutely insane damage. You can change the build around a bit, and if you don't want to use Call of the Weak, you can swap it for Ball Lightning, which is, it hits every enemy twice, which is pretty nice. At least it still seems to. And yeah, it does incredible damage. But I prefer the Frost Arrow with Call of the Weak because of the straight, just 20% damage increase against slowed enemies. Now, as my action bar skills, I'm using Vengeance, the new DPS cooldown, which is absolutely awesome, by the way. And I'm using it with Dark Heart. It does 325% weapon damage as lightning per second to all enemies around you. So if you are using Elemental Arrow with Ball Lightning, then you're building lightning damage. Obviously, this included on there is just absolutely insane damage. The other skills I have, to be fair, I mean, I've used Seethe a decent amount, and it seems pretty good, but I kind of like the straight damage increase from Dark Heart a bit better. I've messed around with side cannons, not really a DPS increase, just gives you some lifesteal. And I've messed around with a few of the other ones, but again, Dark Heart just seems to do the most damage per second, and that's what this skill is all about. Alright, so moving on to mobility. I'm using Vault in my build currently, just due to the fact that you do so much damage in Torment 1 and 2 eventually, that you overkill everything and you just want to get around as fast as possible. So I'm using Vault with Tumble. Tumble reduces the discipline cost of your next Vault, cast within 6 seconds, by 50%. So it's the most mobile rune you can have on your Demon Hunter. Now, if you're lacking damage, but you want Vaults to get out of jailing, get around wallers, things like that, and you want the damage, put in Trial of Cinders or Action Shot. They're both pretty viable for damage. Other than that, I'm not a fan of these two. I do have a crossbow, which gives me Rattling Roll regardless, but I'm still not a fan of using it as an active rune. And Acrobatics is just a bit trashy, really. I don't know why that's in the game, but who knows? If you know why that's in the game, just put in the comment section below, but I don't think it's that great at all. Don't shoot me if I'm wrong, though. Now, defensive, I'm using Shadow Power with Blood Moon. I do mix this with Gloom, depending if I'm doing Torment 2, I put Gloom on here, but if I'm doing Torment 1, I put Blood Moon in. Reason being, it gives you pretty crazy life per hit with Blood Moon in it, and it's a pretty huge noticeable amount of healing. My toughness is high enough that I'm not going to get one-shot by things, or even, like 5-shot, but I want to heal when there's no health globes around, so I keep this in my rune. But if you're having problems with survivability, most definitely use Gloom, because you get that 15% damage reduction plus the active, or just all the time life on hit when it's active, which is 8,000. So it's a pretty good amount. So survivability problems, use Gloom. If you just want some good sustain and you don't have to worry about potting all the time and everything, use Blood Moon, definitely. Alright, so the obvious other alternative to Shadow Power in your build would be Smokescreen. This does have its benefits. When you cast it, all enemies on the screen forget you're there. They focus your pets and your follower, giving you that extra second or second and a half to, get some distance on kiting or get yourself into a safer position or grab some health globes or whatever you want to do. You're more or less immune to them targeting you with spells. Now, I always use Lingering Fog when I use this, but there are other alternatives which are good. Lingering Fog gives it 50% increased duration to 1.5 seconds, which is just fantastic. Healing Vapors as well is, I'd say it's pretty damn good now. 15% of your total life while you're invisible. So if you hit this, 3 or 4 times, depending on how much discipline you have, that's more than half your life back just there. So I'd say that's pretty damn good. All right, moving on to Companion. Now, you can use kind of whatever companion you want. You don't actually have to use companion, but with my build, I always use the Wolf Companion. Reason being is it's on a fairly short cooldown for what it is, 30-second cooldown, and it gives you a 30% damage increase for 10 seconds. I mean, you can't really go wrong. This is one of my favorite changes in Reaper of Souls for the Demon Hunter class, actually, is your active and passive pet skills. Now, like I said, I always use this one. It gives you a pretty damn good pet. Does 150% cleave damage in front of him. Plus, it gives you that awesome party buff or self buff, whatever you're playing. Gives you 30% damage for 10 seconds. There are other good alternatives. I mean, if you're having problems with survivability, you can use the Boar, who's more of a tank. He taunts things for you, and on top of that, he gives you life per second and pretty good damage reduction as well. So if you're playing hardcore or you're just having problems surviving in general, use the Boar Companion because he's surprisingly good. Bat Companion, if you're using a high hatred build, this one isn't, so I wouldn't recommend using it, but if you are playing something that does use a lot more hatred, I definitely use this because it gives you that active of 50 hatred and it gives you 1 per second as well. Other than that, I mean, I'm not a huge fan of the Spider. Ferret's not really good for farming unless you want a bit more gold. I don't know why you would, but yeah. So that's it for the main build. We'll move on to passive skills. So the passive skills are 100% interchangeable. You can change them for whatever you feel like and whatever suits your playstyle, but these are the ones I use. Now, I always use Call of the Weak with this build because I'm using Frost Arrow with Elemental Arrow. You'd be silly not to use a 20% increased damage versus slowed enemies if you were using this build. So don't change that for anything because that's just straight damage increase, which is amazing. Blood Vengeance, I'd say this is up to you. I use Blood Vengeance, reason being is I like the hatred regen from health globes, and I kill enemies fast enough to have a constant supply of health globes coming in. And I pick them up naturally. I don't have to focus on getting them. So this gives me a crazy amount of hatred regen, plus the discipline regen outweighs Night Stalker for me because I kill enemies so fast. But if you're in the situation where you're not killing enemies fast enough to get health globes, Night Stalker might be the way for you. Reason being is you want to spam vault as much as you can in between farming, or in between killing mobs, and it's always good to have Shadow Power or Smokescreen on demand whenever you want it. So, completely up to you, but personally, I find Blood Vengeance suits my gear better. Now, Ambush, I'm a huge fan of this skill. It's really good for elite packs and really, really good for rift bosses. It gives you 40% increased damage when the enemies are above 75% health. So that means if you hit them at 76% health, your damage is still increased by 40% for that hit, lowering the health below that threshold. So that's a pretty huge damage increase, and I find it kind of hard to avoid using. You can swap this in for whatever you want. I mean, if you feel that maybe that 75% health for that threshold doesn't really suit you and you don't like it, you can swap it out for archery possibly, or maybe get a bit more survivability with Perfectionist, something like that. It's up to you. Or if you want a bit more mobility with the build, Tactical Advantage gives you that extra 60% movement speed whenever you vault, which is always good. And as my fourth slot, I'm generally a pretty huge fan of steady aim. I mean, I kite well enough to keep enemies 10 yards away from me. I'm sure most of you can. It's not that difficult. There are mobs that get in your face once in a while, and you can't really avoid it, but the majority of the time, this is a 20% damage increase. But if it doesn't suit your playstyle and you're not, getting enemies off you fast enough, or you just find yourself surrounded a lot, then swap it for whatever. Maybe you can swap it for archery again, perfectionist. Other than that, I mean, maybe Night Stalker if you want a heavy supply of discipline coming in. But yeah, I mean, personally, I'd probably say use it in your build if you can. It's a bit too good to turn down, really. It is a 20% damage increase. I'd say 95% of the time. But it's playstyle dependent, I suppose, so yeah. Now, the build is changeable, guys. You don't have to play, this exact build. You can change out what you want. I like these 4 skills no matter what build I'm playing. I haven't really been messing around with the sentries too much or anything like that. And I haven't actually been using Rain of Vengeance right now. Reason being is the monsters die so fast. A long DPS cooldown like that just doesn't suit the build. I'd actually prefer Companion over that because I can kill an elite pack and then carry on afterwards. But Rain of Vengeance is good. Cluster Arrow, obviously that would be an alternative to Elemental Arrow. But I'm not a fan of that right now because, again, the enemies die so fast. And I like to AoE quite a bit, shitloads of enemies on my screen. Where Elemental Arrow seems to kind of grasp that need. Cluster Arrow, I'm not a fan for AoEing, big groups of mobs down that are scattered around your screen. It just doesn't seem to do the trick for me. You run out of hatred too quickly, and then you're relying on your main ability to kill them, which I find to be a huge pain in the ass. But like I said, guys, this is the build I'm using right now. If you have any builds that you want, shown, put it in the comment section below, and I will definitely review it. Just a little quick note before we start looking at the gear. I just want to go over the potential stats you should be having before attempting Torment, or before being able to farm Torment at a pretty good rate. When I started farming Torment at a pretty reasonable rate, I just hit level 70, but my gear beforehand was alright. So I was on about 450k DPS, but it got to a really reasonable rate when I hit about 650 to 700k DPS with a few modifiers to Elemental Arrow. I think I had about 30% damage increased Elemental Arrow on top of the 13% cold damage as well. So aim for about 5 to 600k DPS with some bonus modifiers as well if possible to your main skills. Toughness, I was on about 2.5 million toughness before it started to get comfortably, comfortably enough to take hits. Below that, I think I was at 1.5 million toughness at one point, and mobs were kind of scary, to say the least. But about 2.5 is the most comfortable bit. Now, with 1 million damage, plus all the modifiers, all the Elemental Arrow stuff, you shred through Torment 1, and especially, well, Torment 2, and especially Torment 1. So yeah, let's have a look at the gear, though. So we're going to have a quick look at my gear. Like I said, I'm not going to be going over in great detail, well, in any detail really, how to gear. I just want to show you what I'm using just to get an idea of what to reforge your gear towards and what kind of stats you want. But I'm going to be making a completely separate gearing guide. Reason being is I want to cut my videos a bit shorter this time around because I don't really want you to have to sit through 30 minutes, even though this is probably going to be 20 minutes because I have a talent to drag things out a little bit. Anyway, so here's all the gear piece by piece. Main hand weapon. I'd say that's a pretty damn good roll. Boots here, going towards Elemental Arrow damage. Reason being Elemental Arrow build. Again, on the quiver, Elemental damage. Rings, I'm going for critical hit chance, etc. All damage stats, as you can see. Legs, just pure stats, pure survivability, pure damage. Oh, mouse is kind of disconnected there for a second. Just give me 1 sec. I don't know what's going on. There we go. USB ports are bugging out. And then my belt, I've aimed it towards... I could have aimed it towards a bit more survivability damage, but I went entangling shot damage. I'm yet to change this, depending on what I use as my main ability. Gloves, pure damage. Definitely recommended for lower torment levels. Chest, pretty... I actually got this from gambling, believe it or not, which I thought was pretty awesome. Stats on it are pretty good. Gloves, gone for cold damage on top of critical hit chance, dexterity, vitality. Cold damage for the frost arrow. Neck, I've been re-rolling it, and it hasn't rolled what I want to yet. I either want the increased damage or attack speed, but it'll happen eventually. And then Helm, you obviously want the same kind of thing. Elemental air damage, critical hit chance is a must. And then Dex Vitality on there as well. And Shoulders, just pure damage and survivability. No cooldown reduction, anything like that with this build, which is great. So yeah, guys, like I said, just pause over where you want to, which piece of gear you want to view. I'm going to put a link in the comment section below for my Armory. But the Armory's kind of shit right now, and it doesn't show rerolls, which I thought Blizzard would have gone on top of already. I haven't checked it in a few days, but I'm pretty sure it still doesn't show the rerolls regardless, which is, I'd say, is pretty effing annoying. I'll also show you the Paragon points in the gearing guide as part of that guide. But at the moment, I'll just pause it over what I'm using. At the moment, yeah, I'll show it to you later. Reason being is I want to keep the guide shorter, which I'm bad at. Anyways, guys, I'm going to put on some gameplay footage for you guys to watch. Hope you enjoy the tunes, and yeah, I'll talk to you afterwards. Alright guys, so that covers it for the Demon Hunter spec I wanted to show you today. Like I said, I think like 5 times before, I will be featuring their specs if you link them in the comment section below. Make sure you actually link them though, otherwise they won't get considered to put in a video. So I can't stress that enough. Also guys, if you did enjoy the video and you enjoyed the content, or you just like the sound of my voice, don't forget to like the video and subscribe. It's just a it's nice to see the support, and I love all my subscribers, so thanks for subscribing, guys. But yeah, it'd be nice if you could. Other than that, if you look on the middle of the screen, there is a Crusader kind of video I made last week, so you can click on that if you're interested in the Crusader. And future guides will be coming out for the Demon Hunter will be the gearing guide, and the Paragon point distribution guide, along with the Crusader guide, which will be the same for gear and Paragon points, etc. I will be doing the rest of the classes, although I'm working full time right now, so it's hard for me to play the game enough to to gear up that quickly. So I will be playing as much as I can. I'll be getting out as many videos as I can. Yeah. So guys, thank you very, very much for watching. And I will see you all in 2 weeks, because I'm in Italy for a week next week on a little snowboarding trip. So no video next week. But in 2 weeks, you will have one. So thanks, guys, and I will see you later. Bye-bye.